We have waited 3.5 months for this moment. It is finally the start of the fantasy football playoffs, and it is the best time of the year. Now, some of you may have a bye. Why are you watching? Go take the time off if you got the bye. But the rest of you are watching this video today because you're trying to determine which running back you need to start to clinch your spot into round 2 of the fantasy football playoffs. So in today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have the only running back rankings you will need to win week 15, round 1 of the fantasy football playoffs. I'm your host, Shaun and Aidan. I'm joined by my co-host, my good friend, my fellow knower of ball, Aidan Haller. Aidan, man, we're recording this Friday morning. Cooper Kupp's already goose-egged. Just an absolute L of a game to start round 1 of the fantasy playoffs. Hopefully you avoided Brock Purdy, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Kyren Williams, all these kind of duds. Hopefully you're able to escape that. How are you today, man?
I'm doing well, Shaun. Yeah. In my playoff matchup, my opponent started Kupp, so off to a good start there. My condolences to everyone that started him, as that's brutal, man. Guy's averaging, was just shy of 20 points on the season and gives you the goose. It's even more frustrating when you look at, like, Puka Nacua still had a pretty good game. I think
he did.
He was
the
just
offense.
just shy of 20. Yeah, it's a tough look, but that's fantasy football, man. You can prepare, you can have the best team, and a lot of times in the playoffs, the best team doesn't win, unfortunately. And, it's stuff like that. But I'm excited and I'm ready to compete, man. It feels good. We're finally here. It is the fantasy playoffs. How are you preparing for this weekend? How are you feeling?
Yeah. I made it to the playoffs in 10 out of 11 leagues. So
Wow.
basically it's BAU for the most part for me.
Yeah.
I did have Kupp in 3 of them. So that's fun. Kyren in 2, Guerendo in another. I did face Brock Purdy and Cooper Kupp. I faced a team that had both Brock Purdy and Cooper Kupp.
So you're feeling good. You're feeling
rough.
good.
Yeah. One of the Kupp teams also faced off against Stafford plus Puka. So like Stafford had like 8 points. So like it's not great, but plenty of teams won, which Jaden Reed's goose egg last week. Plenty of teams put up points. It's if you need a ceiling game to advance to round 2, you're probably not going to get there with a goose in your lineup, but you definitely can win if your opponent doesn't necessarily. I'm not breaking any news here, but it's not the end of the world. It does lower your win probability, and it is frustrating, but what are you going to do?
30 or 40 in your lineup, and it's like it never happened. Like
just a casual 30 bomb,
Yeah, and you're good. You're good.
Just Ja'Marr Chase, you're fine. You can make up for it.
You're fine.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel is that was sad, man.
He didn't goose egg, did he? I didn't have time to watch the game, but
he had a walk-in touchdown that he just dropped after asking for the ball. It was pretty rough. That was a rough Niner game. If you're a Niner fan,
yes,
the defense played exceptionally well. They held the Rams to 12 points.
6. Yeah, it's like
Purdy played pretty poorly. I don't really know what that one's about. But this season has mercifully come to an end. So that's nice. I can focus on fantasy football and trying to win some of these leagues, man. But again, enough about me, enough about you and our leagues. I'm sure none of you guys care. We want to help you punch your ticket to the fantasy playoffs. So in today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we're just going to highlight the top 46 running backs on the slate. I've ranked them. Aidan, you've broken them out into 6 tiers, or do you have 5 today?
I think we've got 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 tiers.
6 tiers, and like kind of a baby tier here.
I know. I was going to ask about that one. It's a little one, but we got 6.
Maybe we can expand it. I think I'm gonna. I'm gonna expand it just a little bit here.
There we go.
But outside of that, our rankings episodes, if you are new, welcome. It's crazy. You're trusting us. It's kind of nuts. You must be really on the fence about sincere McCormick. So we've got some thoughts.
We got you. Don't worry.
We got some thoughts. How our rankings work. So I'm going to pull up my screen. I'll show you a little bit. I'll give you kind of a sneak peek here of how we break this down. So The way that I've broken this out, I've got each player's name here on the left hand of the screen, and then I kind of use a bunch of different factors to determine how I'm going to rank them and how I build out something called an RTM score. So I've got the implied team total rank here, which is ITT rank. It's essentially how much Vegas thinks the team that the player is going to play on is going to score versus the rest of the slate. We have all 32 teams in action this week, so we'll have a very sticky and I think significant ITT rank versus the competitors. ECR here is the expert consensus rankings that you see over at Fantasy Pros. So this is what the fantasy industry is ranking this position essentially at an aggregate level. My rank versus ECR. So who am I higher or lower on? Who are guys that I'm taking a stand on? Then here I have their fantasy points per game production over the past month. Their expected fantasy points was essentially their usage. I subtract usage over production to get efficiency. We want efficient players, but guys that are negative efficiency are positive regression candidates, which is always important to take a look at. From there, I take a look at the opponent and how many points per game they're giving up to the running back position and how they stack up against the rest of the NFL. Combine it all into an RTM score, and then I built out kind of a rudimentary projection to give you an understanding of, basically the defense plus the usage. That's kind of how I get there. Pretty straightforward stuff. But before we dive in, Aidan, I'm sure there are people that decided to click on this video first time, right? What outside of this should people be expecting on today's episode?
Yeah, welcome to the show, as Shaun mentioned. What an honor that you are trusting us in week 1 of the fantasy playoffs. But yeah, Shaun kind of laid out how we've ranked this. We keep it pretty simple, though, and make it easy for you. So you don't have to watch the whole episode. We've got timestamps in the description below where we outline who's in what tier. We've got the link to our rankings. So feel free to click around, just kind of see what we've got here. I know you're probably looking at tons of other videos, but we want to make it as easy as possible for you guys. So hang around 5 minutes, 20, 40, however long you're here for. We're happy to have you. And yeah, let us know your feedback. Comment. We love interacting with you guys. Like, subscribe if you want to hang around for the long run. But welcome to the Mean Team. And here are our week 1 fantasy football running back rankings.
It's the stuff dreams are made of. So we're going to go tier by tier. I'm going to try and talk through each option. So we're going to start here, tier 1, running backs 1 through 7. I've got Saquon, Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Chuba Hubbard, Derrick Henry, Devin Achane. There's not much to be said about Saquon. Tougher matchup. You just hope that they get tackled on the 5-yard line instead of the 1. And it's the difference between a 20-point game and a 35-point game, really, for Saquon. It's really just about where they get tackled in the red zone.
It's brutal.
Because they continue to do the tush push. So Josh Jacobs has been the second best running back in all of fantasy for a month now. Gets a good spot here against Seattle, giving up the 12th most points per game to running backs. RTM score is great. Projection is great. This is a run-first team, man. Sunday Night Football. This is in Green Bay. Kind of, I wouldn't say must win for Green Bay. They seem pretty set, but you got to get this dub if they want to win this division. And Seattle basically has to keep winning these games because the Rams are lurking. So that'll be a fun matchup, but I really like Josh Jacobs in this one. Joe Mixon, RB3 here. It's a great matchup with elite production. Miami's been gettable by running backs. Mixon is, by all accounts, the RB3 based off of usage and production. Bijan at RB4. This guy's amazing, Aidan. Bijan he's so good at football.
I was just looking at him too. Yeah, he had 20, and that included an Algier vulture too. He probably should have had 30 last week, but he's a walking 20 piece right now. It's fully matched.
It's everything. Yeah, and he's not even hitting his ceiling because Kirk Cousins has been so bad.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of big plays either.
Nope.
He's kind of just grinding. But yeah, no, Kirk Cousins is for sure putting a bit of a damper on the ceiling. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
They have to run these very specific run concepts because Cousins is so immobile. You just feel like they're playing offense with one hand tied behind their back. And Bijan is still delivering the goods here. He's only the RB10, but again, there hasn't been a lot of explosive plays, and some of his biggest plays have gotten called back to penalty this season. Kind of weird in that sense. But I honestly think Bijan could be one guy you look up. That guy was the RB1 during the fantasy playoffs. He has that kind of ability, and this is a good matchup against Vegas. And considering Vegas's pass rush and Kirk Cousins' complete lack of mobility, you have to imagine they're going to try and establish the fuck out of it. And I'm sorry, first F bomb 10 minutes in. You think they're going to have to establish it, man. Outside of Bijan, Chuba Hubbard, one of the guys I'm highest on versus expert consensus rankings. Him and Josh Jacobs in this tier, super high on Chuba. He's now unchallenged for touches, and Dallas, poor John Brooks. Dallas has given up the fourth most points per game to running backs, and now they're going to be out with their promising young linebacker Demarion Overshown. So things are pointing up for Chuba if you've had him. Derrick Henry. So I'm a little bit lower than expert consensus rankings on the King. I do think this is a positive game script for Derrick Henry. They're probably going to run up the score against a bad Giants kind of defense that's essentially given up. And I heard the weather conditions are not great on the East Coast right now. So I do think that Derrick Henry has a big game, but it's hard for me to project him really high based off of how he's produced the past month. And then Devin Achane is basically a PPR merchant. So Houston has been exceptional against the run all season long. But my thing about Achane in this game is that Miami could be without both of their starting tackles. And the Texans have two of the biggest sack getters in the league in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Have to imagine they're going to play that quick game offense, or at least out of the gates, they're going to try and establish it. And I think they're going to do that with Achane. So I think Achane could continue his PPR merchant ways this week. All right, I'll pause. That's tier 1. Aidan, what are you thinking about these top 7 guys?
Yeah, I think 3 things first. I think you put Josh Jacobs on the thumbnail last week, and he delivered. The dude is scorching hot right now. Like you could argue, like there's not an RB in fantasy you'd rather have right now. It's an awesome run out for him lately, and another really good matchup, like you said, in Seattle. So I kind of expect that to continue. Chuba, yeah, you're ahead of ECR, but like, man, that offense is getting a lot better each week. John Brooks, really unfortunate tearing the ACL again, and has just looked really good this year. Would not surprise me at all if he ends up in this top tier, your top 6 RBs. And then we're missing one guy from this tier. Chase Brown has got to be in this conversation every single week. I think just the dude is walking into 20, 25 points every single week. I think I would expand the tier by 1 personally. I think just the sheer volume of touches, like he's getting every single touch. It's like not even volume. It's every single touch. The guy is catching a handful of passes every game. He's scoring touchdowns. He's efficient on the ground. If you held on to him, like, wow, what a treat. Because I almost gave up on him early in the year. I've got him on my playoff team.
Him in the league.
I was 1 week away. And then he kind of started to find it. But yeah, it looks legit. It's like everything is passing the test. The defense continues to suck, and the offense continues to be really good. So kind of my thoughts there on tier 1. Yeah, the Derrick Henry thing is, it's a good spot for him, but, he just hasn't been all that good lately. It feels like the volume, the touchdowns kind of slowed down a little bit, but the Giants suck. The Giants really suck, and we've got DeVito again. So what they're favored by, I think 12 points, right? It's more. It's like 15 points. I think the Ravens are favored. I think it's by 15, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, it's like 2 touchdowns. So there's a good chance we're up early. Hopefully they don't go up too much and they pull them at like half. That could be a nightmare for you. So ideally for you, it's not like a total ass kicking and we get like Justice Hill in at the third quarter for running every snap. But like it's a pretty real possibility. They're like there's no reason for the Ravens to keep their starters out there if they're up by a couple of touchdowns early on.
So one thing, like I remember teams that are favored to win by like 15 points rarely ever cover. Like them cover.
It's a lot in the NFL. Yeah. It's a lot in the NFL.
And 2, the Ravens kind of play with their food in these matchups sometimes. Now,
it's a good way.
It's a little different. They have Derrick Henry now, but like they sometimes be doing that. So I'm not ruling anything out with the Ravens. Obviously, they're going to win. I would be shocked if they lost the Giants in this game. But like, it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Wherever the guy that put $3 million on the Eagles, put it all on the Ravens. Just fuck it, do it again, man. Because that should be an easy one.
I have officially moved Chase Brown into. Give me a second. God, my dogs were just going insane right there. I had the mailman, back-to-back mailman. Okay. Chase Brown is now in tier 1. It's official. We got 8 running backs in tier 1.
There we go.
I agree. Chase Brown should be in there. All right. Tier 2 here. Running backs 9 through 15. We got Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, Kyren Williams, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Rico Dowdle. Okay. Kamara is the Will Smith meme. There's no one left. There's literally no one left. It's Jake Haener and Alvin Kamara. It's funny that the 29-year-old running back was the only one that could stay healthy for this team.
He fought through some injuries, but he's the only one that like weathered the storm. Yeah, he's still here, man.
Him and Kendre. It's Kendre and Kamara. The K's. Jahmyr Gibbs. Buffalo is very vulnerable to explosive runs. So this could be a great Jahmyr Gibbs spot for him. Zach Charbonnet. Wow, I did not know this man would be ripping off 50-yard touchdown runs. Now we all like him as an in-between the tackle grinder, but that was a hell of a performance from Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker, it was nuts. And Cardinals defense have been playing really well lately too, and they just came out and gashed him. Green Bay, middle of the pack against running backs, but Charbonnet is going to get a shit ton of run, and we've now seen him be really good when he's been featured. Multiple times, be super fantasy viable when he's featured, and he's year 2, baby. He's a year 2, so throw him in your lineup. I feel good about him as a top 11 play this week. Kyren had a decent game. He actually ran for I think 100 yards. He was one of the main reasons I think they won that game, in my opinion. A lot of people on Twitter were just furious with Kyren Williams. I'm a Niner fan watching him get 4 yards every single time he touches the ball. I'm like, what do you guys? We cannot stop this man. Like, what do you want more? Like, I don't get it. But he had a nice game, no touchdown though, so it was kind of a middling fantasy performance for Kyren. But I still had him top 12. Monty, again, you can run on Buffalo. I think Detroit gets busy with their run game this week. Aaron Jones, I think, wheels up for this entire Minnesota offense. The Bears have given up on defense. And Rico Dowdle has put together 2 really strong performances, and he now gets Carolina, which is by far and away the best spot for any running back this season. So that's tier 2, man. Some familiar names, some interesting names, Rico Dowdle and Zach Charbonnet are some of them. But what are you thinking about tier 2 here before we get to tier 3?
Yeah, I think you make a couple of good shouts. Kyren actually did have a good game. I was just looking at his stats. It's not sexy, but, grinded out a little under 4 yards a carry. Like, that's fine. It's like the Niners didn't have someone like that doing it on their end. So it feels like in a sloppy, wet game, he'll probably hit home at about ADP, maybe miss just a little bit at 13.2, but probably not too far off. Great point on Aaron Jones. Yeah, the Chicago defense is like fully fallen apart. They got absolutely gashed last week by the Niners, and that was a rookie in Isaac Guerendo. I'd argue the Vikings are playing much better on offense right now, so really good spot there. Then I like the Lions running backs too. If it's anything like the game we just saw with the Rams, it's going to be exciting for pretty much everyone on offense again. So I think both of them find the end zone and have themselves a pretty good day.
Is this in Detroit? Yeah, it's in Detroit, right?
We are. I think we are.
I don't think
Detroit. Yeah,
I don't think Goff's playing outside. That'd be more of a narrative.
Detroit in the 1 p.m. slot too, which is exciting.
That's going to be a shootout.
Yep.
If you have the Lions running backs, I think I would be shocked if you were not very happy with the result.
Yeah, I agree.
I do. Again, Rico Dowdle is probably somebody you're looking at that you've had as your RB3 all year. I really think you should start him. I honestly might put him on the thumbnail. I think Dowdle is someone that is set up for a big week. He looked explosive against Cincinnati.
That's 2 weeks in a row now. That's 2 weeks in a row now.
And Cincinnati's defense isn't good, but it's much better at stopping the run than it is the pass. And he looked awesome. I think this Carolina-Dallas game is actually going to be pretty fruitful for fantasy points.
For sure.
So yeah,
he's averaging like 100 yards on the ground his last 3 weeks. Dowdle,
not bad
since he's taken over, has been super, super good to people who were patient with him on the bench.
He's kind of been exactly what you would have wanted. Like, if it does suck if you chose between Dowdle and Chase Brown because they were kind of going around the same time. Like,
yeah,
Chase Brown's been better, but Dowdle's been pretty solid, man.
It's a pretty solid 1B if those were your two choices. Yeah. Like you're getting, like I'm kind of expecting another 15, maybe 20 points if he finds the end zone again. No, I think, you're in a good spot with him.
All right, tier 3 here, running back 16 through 23. James Conner, Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson, Tyrone Tracy, Tony Pollard, Rhamondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Isaac Guerendo. James Conner every week is a fringe RB1. Kind of weird. The Cardinals offense is just weird. So hard to know what he's going to get week in and week out, but the usage is going to be good, and he's going to continue to be good. He's going to be efficient on the usage to an extent. So I like him this week against New England. He has a good RTM score, favorable matchup, and production. Jonathan Taylor is a positive regression candidate. As you can see here, one of the biggest blinking lights for positive regression. I do think he has a nice week against Denver, even though Denver's been pretty good against the run. Brian Robinson, this could be one of the more favorable game scripts of the weekend for the Commanders in that running attack. Now, what's happened, though, is they come out and they gash people in the first half, and then, Jeremy McNichols is out there. So I do think that caps a little bit of B-Rob's ceiling, but New Orleans has been pretty Swiss cheese to running backs. B-Rob looks healthy. He's going to be super healthy coming out of this bye week. Him and JT, by the way. JT, for sure, is going to be the healthiest he's been since he sprained his ankle coming out of this bye. So I like both those guys. Tyrone Tracy is going to be reception dependent. The RTM score is pretty solid for Tracy. The projection is not because his team sucks. But if he's playing with Tommy DeVito and Tommy DeVito wants to go full check down Charlie, you could see Tyrone Tracy PPR scam his way to 15, 16 fantasy points in this one. Tony Pollard is going to be an uncomfy start, but he has clear upside against Cincinnati. Rhamondre Stevenson is in a great matchup against Arizona, and he's a positive regression candidate. Najee Harris, brutal matchup, but Najee's been playing pretty well. And then Isaac Guerendo, if you had the testicular fortitude to start him, he didn't give you that ceiling, but he did not ruin your night. I think he had, 10, 11 fantasy points. Looked pretty good, looked healthy. He should be a viable start if you make it to week 16. All right, tier 3, Aidan, what are your thoughts on what we got here?
James Conner makes me a little nervous. This Arizona offense is just so confusing to watch. Like, nothing really makes sense with this offense. It feels like he's very conservative. The passing attack is so difficult. Like, nothing's easy there, and it's James Conner is like a lone bright spot. He hit home last week with a receiving touchdown. Was just shy of 100 yards on the ground, but New England isn't awful. This is a team that is, still battling, in my opinion. Like, I think we all expected this team to be a lot worse, but even with their record, like, they're not getting blown out. This is a team that's competitive, so we'll see. He makes me a little nervous. You already called out the B-Rob matchup. Yeah, I think this is a really good one. Kind of similar to the Ravens, though. If this one gets out of hand, we could see B-Rob without a helmet in the second half, which would be an absolute disaster. Tony Pollard, man, the no practicing all week is just brutal. Like, he's gonna play, but man, it's really uncomfortable. I was talking to a buddy this week, and he's like, "Do I go Tracy or no? Do I go Pollard, or do I do?" I think it was Patrick Taylor last night, and I was like, "Dude, it's Pollard. Like, he's playing." I was like, "Trust me, I've been owning him all year. Like he's getting like the Joel Embiid. He's just not playing, and then like he's showing up. So it's like he's gonna play, but pretty good matchup too. So I like that. And then Najee, dude, Najee, talk about a frustrating own, man. Najee's been brutal to own. Like, but like he's been like hitting against like hard matchups. It's like it's when you don't think he's gonna have a good game that he has a good game, which kind of leads me to believe he's gonna be fine this week, even against Philly. Like, the Russ Wilson Pittsburgh offense has been pretty average at least like maybe even above average. So stumbling for a touchdown, give us 15 points, and I think Najee hits home at his ADP, or not ADP, his ECR this week.
This is an important game for Pittsburgh to win because they're up 2 on the Ravens, but they play the Ravens after this game. Then they play KC. Like, they've got a tough stretch here. And no George Pickens. So they're just going to have to lean on their playmakers.
I completely forgot Pickens is already confirmed out.
They're going to have to check downs to Najee, check downs to Warren. I don't know what they do, but
I think both running backs are going to be quite busy in the passing game.
And CPAT.
Yep.
You can't resist it. You can't resist. You will see big ass 84 running around.
More JF2, man. We might get some JF2 action.
It's a kitchen sink game for them. So we'll see what they do. But, you know, I do think Najee, though, that Philadelphia 29 there makes me a little, but I feel like he's playing well. This offense needs him. So I think you can start him with some confidence. Okay, so tier 5 here, or is this tier 3? Yeah, tier 3 here. Yeah, tier 4.
Yeah, we're in tier 4 now.
Tier 4. Running backs 24 to 30. I've got James Cook, Rachaad White, Sincere McCormick, Javonte Williams, Jaylen Warren, DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne. So James Cook, Buffalo is projected for top 4 points on the slate. He has been a top 15 play with top 30 production, so he's been efficient. Detroit has been brutal to running backs, though. So I don't know. Cook, again, you're going to start him, but it's a little uncomfy. It's a little volatile. But the game
it's similar to like the Najee play, but it's a better offense with Buffalo, obviously.
Better offense and probably a better game environment, but Detroit's been tough. So you're going to have to rely on one of these big plays, but Cooks has been able to hit them all year. So
yeah, he's been hitting them. Yeah, you make a good point
so
there.
You're probably going to need more of that. Rachaad White, so no Bucky. Bucky is questionable, but Bucky did not practice once this week. Even if Bucky plays, you cannot start him after, he got hurt after getting cleared last week. He clearly should have sat last week.
I agree.
But Rachaad White, man, I think that's a fun, easy start. Even though the Chargers have been tough on running backs, Rachaad White is just elite catching the ball out of the backfield. And no Chris Godwin means targets funneled to running backs and Cade Otton. So, yeah, man, you have to feel good about Sade. Sincere McCormick. I've got him at RB 26 here.
Who are you?
My note is Jim.
Who the fuck are you?
I don't know, Jim. Okay. So McCormick put up 8.5 fantasy points against the Chiefs in more of a part-time role. Last week, he cracks, I think, close to 11 PPR fantasy points against the who'd they play last week? The Raiders. It was two good run defenses in a row.
The Raiders?
Yeah, who'd the Raiders play last week?
I don't know, man. I have not been watching a ton of Raiders football.
The Raiders last week played, and this is fun. Oh, they played the Broncos last week.
No, they played Tampa.
No, they played the Bucks. They played the Bucks.
Tampa.
Okay.
They played Tampa.
The Bucks rush defense. Now you can run on them. It's not, as you can see here, it's not like the toughest matchup, but they have been pretty good to running backs. So it's been back-to-back weeks where McCormick has gotten pretty decent amount of volume. And has averaged close to 5 yards per carry. He's looked pretty good. Alexander Mattison is going to play, it sounds like, but Antonio Pierce came out and said, Sincere is our starting running back. He has earned that right. And I think a context clue, Aidan, that I think can make me believe this is, Scott Turner is their new OC. So they let I think Luke Getsy got fired. He was their old OC, your former best friend, Luke Getsy. And in the first game back from injury, Alexander Mattison was clearly behind Jahmyr White, and both got hurt then. I mean, the first game of Scott Turner calling plays, Jahmyr White jumped Alexander Mattison, and they both got hurt. So even in that scenario with Jahmyr White, who's now on IR, I do think they want to prioritize another running back over Mattison.
Yeah, I agree.
So I do think that if you are in a spot where Kenneth Walker is hurt, and you need to stream a running back, I do think Sincere McCormick has looked good. He has earned the trust of the coaching staff. And though Atlanta's got a good rush defense, I do think this guy's going to see probably 15 touches.
Yep.
And with 15 touches, I do think you can start him.
Yeah, you can probably scrape at least 5 or 10 points there, especially if he gets in the end zone.
And Desmond Ridder is a check down Charlie. This is what we know about Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, he had 3 targets last week already.
Desmond Ridder is going to throw the ball to running backs. Now, that makes me think Alexander Mattison could be in play a little bit because he's their pass-catching running back and Amir Abdullah, whatever. I'm not going to overthink it. McCormick, I think, is a decent play here.
Yep.
So I've got him at 26. Javonte Williams, I don't really care. Favorable matchup, but please start someone else. Jaylen Warren, everything we said about Najee, just like 75% of it. DeAndre Swift, really uncomfy start. Just not comfy. I wouldn't want to do it. And then Travis Etienne, technically running ahead of Bigsby. I think I'd rather play Bigsby over Etienne at this point, but
he outcarried the hell out of him last week.
But Etienne gets all the targets, so it's
know. Fuck, dude. I don't know what I did. I'm not.
What happened to that team, bro?
What
happened,
dude? Everyone died. You see, Evan Ingram just got put on season-ending IR.
That was a business decision IR move.
I don't know how you can start either running back at this point, but I think I prefer Bigsby at this point of the season personally. At least he's getting the carries, and if they somehow get inside the 10,
he will get the goal line look.
He is going to get the goal line work, and like, give me a touchdown, and you're fine in my lineup. That's 10, like you'll be okay.
Anything on these guys before we get to tiers 5 and 6?
DeAndre Swift has not practiced this week. And DeAndre Swift is still nursing the injury and has also not eclipsed 10 points in 3 straight weeks. He kind of came back down to earth, unfortunately, and you kind of called it. Like, he kind of nurses these little injuries as the year goes on, so that's a pretty uncomfortable start if you got to do it. We already talked about Warren, but I actually think there's worse you could do than Warren. I think he's going to catch a couple passes and probably get you to double-digit fantasy points. So
he's good. He's just a good player.
He is good.
I'd love to see him get more.
I like watching him. He runs hard as they both run so fucking hard in that backfield.
It's a good duo.
Just dragging people. Yeah, it's a good duo. But yeah, we're officially in the last tier here where it's like, I feel good about these guys, whereas the next two are like, just fucking pray to God. Pray to God.
Yeah. And then we've got even more complications for this next tier. I'll get to in a second. But tier 5 here, running backs 30 to 39. 31 to 39. Patrick Taylor, Isaiah Davis, Braelon Allen, Tank Bigsby, Isaiah Pacheco, Nick Chubb, Kamani Vidal, Justice Hill, Gus Edwards. I would have had Taylor as like a decent spot start, but of course, again, anytime you think Shanny's going to do something, he does the opposite. So, of course, Guerendo got 100% running back share last night. Okay, so the Jets guys, Brees Hall practiced today. Did you see that? He practiced in full.
The fuck? What? Just shut him down. What are we doing?
It's now nightmare season where if you have Brees, you have to play him. You're not playing fucking Brees Hall.
You drafted him in the first round.
An injury, but he's playing the Jaguars, who have given up the second most fantasy points per game to running backs this season.
He could go ballistic if they actually play him.
Ballistic. Or he could give you 5 points, and it's a 3-way committee. I have a sneaky suspicion all 3 of these guys get run. That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare decision you're gonna have to make, folks.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brees Hall plays. Brees Hall, we're gonna put him at the top, probably of tier 4, or the bottom of tier 3. That's probably where I'd put him. So Brees is a better start than the other 2,
by far.
But fuck,
the Isaiah Davis receptions and touchdown.
Davis is good.
We're annoying as fuck.
I will say, I don't think I'd pay Brees Hall if you have Allen and Davis. You could just have a nice running back duo. Like,
I think in their situation, given who else you still have to pay, I probably wouldn't. Like, you have to pay Garrett. You have to pay Sauce. I don't think you're paying all 3 of those guys top of the market money. Whereas if you only had to pay one of them, I think I'd pay Brees. But I don't know. We'll see, man. Brees is really good.
Brees would get paid. Brees would be one of those running backs that would get a deal for sure. Brees
is getting paid. He's just been in bad offenses his entire career. Entire career now. It's a Saquon. Like, I don't think he's as good as Saquon, but it's Saquon in New York.
It is. Yeah, I agree. If he landed on a new team, I wouldn't overthink it.
No.
Like, imagine if he was on the Bengals. He would be.
Oh my God! Or even it's another
tearing it up, man.
It's another good running back. Yeah, that'd be sick, dude. Or like, imagine him as like the Rams starting running back. Oh, that'd be so cool.
Wow, that would be nuts. We already talked about Tank Bigsby. You could do worse for sure. Even though the Jets have a pretty good rush defense. Like, come on, it's like give up season for the Jets. So I don't hate it. Pacheco. Again, don't really want to start him, but he's looked decent, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to start him, but I guess. I'd rather start him over Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, who's been terrible, but he's TD dependent.
Terrible.
He
The
continues to
legs
get
look
run.
terrible, dude.
Who would have thought Nick Chubb struggled this year? Kamani Vidal. He outsnapped Gus Edwards, and he looks better than Gus Edwards. So it's kind of like it's like a Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary situation. It just takes Gus subbing out for a quarter or something because he banged up his shin or knee, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Vidal, actually, maybe we should give this guy some run. Yep. So yeah, I actually am desperate in a matchup. I think I'm going to play Vidal. So we'll see how this goes.
Like you just know, like Gus is the goal line.
The goal line for sure.
It's annoying, but yeah, Vidal, he played over half the snaps, 8 carries. Was the most of the season. So I'd love to see more. I picked him up last week. He didn't get enough run. I'm like, damn. I didn't play him, but I'd love to see him get more run in that offense.
Justice Hill, game script dependent, but for some reason they start throwing the ball. It's good for Justice Hill. And then Gus Edwards is TD dependent. If you're playing him, you just need that sweet, sweet touchdown. Any thoughts on this tier before we get to tier 6?
No, no one else here. There is a name in the next. I'd argue like Kendrick could get moved up into this. I was just looking down. Like we can just get into the next tier here, but
let's get into the tier. Yeah. Next tier here we got Jaleel McLaughlin, running backs 40 through 46. Jaleel McLaughlin, Kendre Miller, Jerome Ford, Tyjae Spears, Tyler Algier, Jeremy McNichols, Kareem Hunt. So McLaughlin looked pretty good before the bye. That's a hot end running back committee, and your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
You have no idea what they're going to do. Miller looked awesome. Dude is crushing it on my last place best ball teams. Kendre Miller looked great. I don't know how much more run he gets. I know Kamara has been dealing with an illness this week. I didn't really highlight it with Kamara because I think he's fine. But it's just something, if you're like trying to galaxy brain a Kendre week, you factor that in, I guess. But man, New Orleans is 31st implied team total rank this week. Like, they're starting Jake Haener. Their offense is in shambles. Kendre did get a goal line tout though, so
he scored.
He did. And Kendre moved the pile. Kendre looked off. Kendre's a good running back. Like, I don't know. We're going to look back on this in 5 years, and he's going to have like a decent NFL career and be like, what the fuck was that?
Like, no, it's just, what was what that? The fuck? What is Dennis Allen's fucking deal?
What was that? Like, we're going to look back, and Chris Olave is going to be way better. Like, everyone's just going to be way better. And we're going to be like, what happened with that team for 2 years? But yeah, I think Kendre's okay. He's a bench stash for sure. Like, if for some reason they shut down Kamara, like, dude, Kendre in like a week 16 game is going to get so much run.
Yeah, so, winning you a championship.
Yeah, put him on the end of your bench for sure.
Drew Vegas in week 17. It could be interesting.
That's right. My God, I'm thinking about the correlation.
I've
got some Kendre Miller, Brock Bowers teams floating around in the ether.
Get out of here, man.
Oh yeah, man. Not in best ball, not in real life. Jerome Ford, reception dependent. Tyjae Spears, goodbye, our sweet prince. It just didn't hit for Mr. Year 2. Super injury plague season for Tyjae. Tyler Algier, honestly, one of my least favorite guys to see on a screen. I get emotionally upset when Algier's on the screen. I'm like, get the fuck off the screen, man. Remember that point earlier in the year where they went to Algier 3 times in a row on the goal line and he didn't get it.
It was
and awful. They put in Bijan and
he walks in. He walks into the end zone.
Just fuck off with Tyler Algier, man. Like, fuck off.
Play your first round running back. Stop. Just knock it off.
It's so funny because like Algier hasn't done anything in a month. If you look at all his data, it's because that offense has been terrible. Yep. And that just shows you how good Bijan is, because like Algier's a good running back.
He's fine. He's a backup running back. He's a backup running back.
But Algier needs a good offensive system to be good. He's not going to elevate a poor system. We're like, Bijan, you can drop him in a bad offense and he's going to play well. Yep. So man, like, I know we're in tier 6 here, but I can't. I'm going to put Bijan on the thumbnail, actually. Bijan's going on the fucking
Bijan's going on the nail, and it's non-negotiable.
You heard it here, folks. I'm putting Bijan on the thumbnail. Jeremy McNichols.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is. Kareem Hunt. Yeah. You should have traded him when Aidan told you to trade him.
Bingo. Only guy I want to call out here, it's more just like a I wish Jerome Ford was better this year.
It's been
I
okay.
don't really know what happened. I thought this was going to be one of the best picks in fantasy. That was a total faceplant for me because Nick Chubb never came back really, which like we called. But I don't know. Yeah, Jerome Ford never happened. He had the injury and stuff. But keep an eye on Tajay. If Pollard for whatever reason does not go, could have a pretty heavy workload. But all signs point towards him playing. So if you start anyone in here, it would be Kendre Miller for me. And hope you find Paydirt again and get you 10 points.
Man, imagine starting Kendre Miller in the first round of the fantasy playoffs.
Clench him, man. Just
wow. I think I'm going to go pick up Kendre.
Yeah, just to feel something. Yeah, if he's out there, he's pretty. Let's see, what is he rostered on Sleeper in front of me here? 15%. I don't believe that. He's got more roster.
And I don't have Sean Tucker here, but he's in this tier too.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, man. That's running backs 46. We are going to have wide receivers on the feed Saturday morning. This is coming to you Friday evening. It's a big weekend, boys. And,
huge.
We want you guys to win. That's the goal here. Go Bijan. Go Bijan, baby. All right, Aidan. Appreciate you as always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time.